Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Devil May Cry 5. This title was sent to me by Capcom so I could give it a look and tell you guys my opinions on it. This video is not a review, it is my impressions after about 6 hours or so of gameplay. I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to cover this title, so I only requested a code yesterday. Anyway, before we begin, I feel it is important to mention that I am not a hardcore Devil May Cry player, and I'm coming into this game pretty much fresh. I've played part of Devil May Cry 3, Devil May Cry 4, and DMC, but all of this was so long ago, it might as well not even matter. If you somehow never heard of the Devil May Cry series, this is a spectacle fighter, and the objective is not just to slaughter every single enemy they place in your path, but also to do it in style. To the point where there's even a taunt command that awards you with extra style points if you're able to pull it off in battle without getting hit. As per usual with my impressions videos, we'll start with visuals and sound, and what a way to start. The game's visuals are fantastic, whether during gameplay or cutscenes. The characters are highly detailed, I like the art style, the animations are awesome, especially during some of the more over-the-top cutscenes. I've been playing mostly on 1080p to get the best performance, and so far, it has been steady 60 FPS. Because you see, instead of chasing the open-world trend, Capcom went with a mission-based gameplay experience, which basically means they only need to load the relevant levels and enemies that you're fighting, which allows for a much more focused experience and better performance. Now, I only tested the 4K mode with HDR very briefly, but the visuals there also look fantastic, even way more detailed than 1080p, but what really impressed me was the performance. Now, I don't have Digital Foundry's tools, so I can't tell you the exact frame rates on a console, but I'm pretty sure it was running more than 30 FPS, and it looked amazing. Now, in a game like Devil May Cry 5, performance trumps all, so I'm pretty sure that most players will rather play it in 1080p for the 60 FPS. But I do have to say, even at 4K, the performance was way better than I expected. Now, before we move on to sound, I feel it is important to mention this mission-based approach does mean the game has quite a few loading screens, particularly at the start. When gameplay consists of only killing a couple of enemies in between cutscenes, there are several instances where your experience will be loading screen, into cutscene, into loading screen, into gameplay, into loading screen, into cutscene. You guys get the point. At the start, this is going to happen quite a bit, but then the levels get a little bit longer and the loading screens stop being as problematic as they are at the start. But, you know, be warned, your beginning, it might be a little bit rough if you're someone that's particularly sensitive to loading screens. Anyway, in terms of sound, everything sounds great. From the gunfire to revving up the Red Queen to slashing up enemies, explosions, demonic screams, and everything in between. Now, with the soundtrack, it's one of those situations where you'll either love it or hate it, and I expect most of the fans of the series to enjoy it since it stays within the same style as previous entries in the franchise. On a personal note, I like it a lot. They also give you the option to set the combat music for each of the characters, which means if you get the deluxe version, which comes with the combat tracks of previous titles, you can essentially play Nero with his combat track from DMC4, or V with Dante's combat tracks from DMC3, or any other combination that you choose to do. However, if you do not have the deluxe version, you can still swap some of the tracks around. So for instance, you can have the combat track from Nero playing when you actually play with V, if you prefer that particular track. I don't know if these are going to be made available as separate DLC or something along those lines, but I would expect something like that because they do want to monetize some aspects of this title, as we are well aware. When it comes to story, I'm not going to go too much in depth to prevent spoiling anything, so I'll just say that I was hooked pretty much after the cutscene that shows how Nero lost his demon arm. I'm also super curious about this V character because I guess I haven't really seen much of the trailers, so discovering this character through playing the game has actually been very satisfying. Now, before we get to how much fun the gameplay feels, I need to address the red orb situation. Now, you guys know that I hosted a live stream called Devil Makes Me Cry 5, where I talked about how much I disapprove of microtransactions in single-player games. And even though there's some weird co-op elements in DMC5, it is still largely a single-player experience. The fact that you can buy red orbs for real money in this game will always remain a stain in the experience for me. Even if after playing it, I genuinely believe the whole thing is rather pointless. And here's why. You can use red orbs to unlock new moves for your character, and new moves do make you more powerful, but as you will soon find, the important thing is being able to actually use those moves in combat, and that requires skill. So even if you were able to unlock every single move available for every single character, it would mean very little if you don't actually know how or when to use them for maximum effectiveness. Now, I believe that most Devil May Cry veterans will be able to unlock all of the moves they want simply due to achieving higher scores as they play through the levels, which will reward you with more orbs, as well as exploring the levels to their fullest extent and completing the secret areas. Whereas newer players like myself will struggle to even make use of every ability they do unlock in between missions, which makes me wonder why this system is even in place. Like, look, this isn't an excuse. I don't like the fact that they are selling red orbs for real money, but in the grand scheme of things, from my experience so far, the impact is minimal. Though I might have to report back once I actually finish the game, because the cost of abilities does increase as you invest more and more orbs into abilities, because they unlock, new ranks into each of the abilities that you're investing in, and then that requires more and more orbs. Finally, on to gameplay. So far I've only played with Nero and V, and these two characters have extremely distinct playstyles, which means you'll have to adapt to different situations, but generally speaking the controls are mapped out in a way that the combat will become pretty intuitive to understand even as you play the different protagonists. Now, having said that, if you're new to the series, the combat will take a while getting used to, particularly because certain moves will depend on whether or not you've locked onto your enemies, and transitioning between unlocked and locked combat can be pretty challenging at first, so you can expect some pretty low scores on your first battles. But when you start to interweave revving up the Red Queen in between regular attacks, Devil Breaker specials, and charged bullets with the Blue Rose, then it's going to feel really good. However, if you're the kind of player that just wants to see some cool shit happen on screen while you mash buttons, the game does have an auto assist mode, which I assume will provide you with that kind of experience. And I can only assume because I refuse to turn that on. I'm the kind of player that would rather learn things the hard way. Now, the gameplay of Devil May Cry revolves around beating up enemies with style. This means that you get more points for using different moves, shooting enemies with your guns and using your Devil Breakers. The problem with that is that if you play in normal difficulty, I felt like the enemies died too fast for you to really get your attacks off properly. So I'd advise you to start off in Devil Hunter difficulty. It's going to be a little bit harder, but the game has been pretty generous with providing me with a bunch of health power-ups as well as checkpoints before bosses. It is important to mention, though, Nero's Devil Breakers, the mechanical arm, they actually break, and you'll need to replace them. Sometimes they might break because enemies interrupted your Devil Breaker special attack. Other times you can sacrifice them for a special move, or you can sacrifice them in a defensive move that allows your character to escape from harm's way. If you break all of them, you're actually going to feel a little gimped because you'll be missing a couple of moves from your character, but you will be able to buy more Devil Breakers with red orbs, or you can find them throughout the levels. The most cheap Devil Breaker that you can buy costs you about 500 red orbs, and the Devil Breaker that I like the most, which is the Gerbera. I'm not going to go over all the Devil Breakers in this particular video, but the Gerbera only costs 500 red orbs, and the reason I like the Gerbera is because it's essentially a dodge, which becomes bound to circle. So if you're someone that's played Dark Souls before, that is extremely intuitive. But it is not just a dodge, it will actually count as an attack as well. So if you use it on like a lower level enemy or a lower tier enemy, let's put it like that, not like a big enemy like a boss, but if you use it on a lower tier enemy, it will actually propel the enemy upwards, so it allows you to continue comboing that way. But if you guys are curious about some of the other Devil Breakers, there's one which is the Pasta Breaker, which will actually fire off the Devil Breaker into the enemies and starts spinning around. There's another one that is just a massive fist that it's rocket powered, and it goes against enemies and it starts almost CCing them in a way. And there's a lot more. You even have the Mega Man's Mega Buster, which will fire Mega Man's style ammunition, and it even changes the jumping animation of your character to make him look more like Mega Man. So it's a little nod there. But yeah, there's a lot of Devil Breakers for Nero that do change a lot of stuff when it comes to playing that particular character. Now, while Nero's playstyle consists of slashing and shooting through enemies, V is more of a summoner, and you take control of summoned creatures while V himself actually stays in the back out of harm's way. Now, the twist here is that your summons can't actually kill creatures, so you'll have to perform the killing blow with V's cane yourself. Which, surprisingly enough, I actually found that combat style to be very satisfying because it opened up a lot more possibilities for taunting during battle, since you can basically be taunting while your summons are attacking. And the summon attacks, it's not like you say, you go attack this thing, and then the creature goes off on itself. No, you actually have to press each button prompt just like you would have to with Nero, and you will have to do combos just like Nero. So for instance, one of the creatures V has is a Black Panther called Shadow, and that is how he does his melee ability. So you have to press the triangle button in order to actually get a melee combo going, and you'll have to do combos with Shadow just like you would have to do with V. So for instance, there are certain skills that you'll unlock which will be like triangle, triangle, delay, and then spam triangle again. In order to get a combo going with V, you have to do the same thing. It's just you have to actually be looking at Shadow, the Black Panther, in order to figure out when you're supposed to be pressing the button prompts. It's the same thing for ranged attacks. You have another creature called Griffin, which pretty much whenever you press the ranged attack button, which is square, he's going to shoot off these little balls of energy, and you can actually hold it to charge up, and he does a special lightning attack. But essentially, it's very similar to the way that you do combat with Nero. The difference is V himself is hanging off in the back out of harm's way, which again, it enables you to actually taunt while your summons are attacking, and it feels extremely satisfying. Overall, I actually felt that V was a much easier character to play as, because at least at the point that I'm at in the game, it just like Nero has a lot more mechanical things to keep track of, like the Devil Breaker abilities, using the Devil Breakers to move into combat or out of combat, using the revving up of the Red Queen, all of that stuff, whereas V, I can pretty much just hang back and focus on other things. And it does provide you with a very unique experience from a spectacle fighter standpoint, something that I personally haven't really seen before. And, you know, I'm kind of getting to a point where I'm just like, dude, I really, really like playing as V. It's really, really cool. Overall, the combat has felt great with both characters so far, but my biggest complaint has to be the camera control during boss fights. I've already had to disable all camera assists because during the action, they would just like get in the way. They would turn the camera in ways that I really didn't want. And I've also had to like further get the character zoomed out from my character because I felt like it was a little bit too claustrophobic. Sometimes I would not be able to see, oh, there's an enemy over there, an enemy over there. And I get it. It's like you want zoom in on the action because the visuals look freaking fantastic, but at the same time, it's like, look, just let me zoom that out, which the game does give you that option, so that I can focus more on actually being better at the combat. But the thing about it is, when you are fighting certain bosses, it feels like the camera has a soft lock, which makes it hard for you to navigate the boss room if you're searching for health or other consumables. Now, I've only gone through, I think, 3 or 4 boss fights up until this point, but there was one that I felt was really bad because I was just like, dude, I know that there's a Devil Breaker over there, and I'm running out of Devil Breakers, and I need to go pick it up. And I'm trying to run there, and the camera just keeps focusing on the boss, despite the fact that I'm not locked on. And I have all of the assists disabled. Like, I wish they would do something about that camera. But then again, that could be due to the fact that I am not a Devil May Cry veteran. Maybe Devil May Cry veterans are used to this. Maybe that is the way that they would prefer it. I don't know. I feel like I was struggling with the camera quite a bit in some of the boss fights. But that is pretty much my only complaint that I have right now with the game. That, and naturally the red orbs as microtransactions. I still don't like that. Regardless if it has no impact or whatever, I still don't like it. Anyway, all in all, I'm still having a blast with the game so far, and I will be streaming it on the channel once the streaming embargo lifts. So if you want to know more, you can show up to the stream and ask me more stuff. By the time this video goes live, the review embargo will have lifted, so reviews will most likely be posted everywhere. So there's that too. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. It helps out a lot. And if you enjoy my content, consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification icon to stay up to date with my channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.